Господа, через 3 минуты мы выйдем в прямой эфир на аудиторию русскоязычную, на аудиторию Казахстана и на весь мир в англоязычном вещании компании Fight TV. Будьте, пожалуйста, готовы.
Welcome everybody to week 2 of Kold Wars. Hope you joined us last Thursday night. Some good fights last Thursday night, some good matchups and some impressive fighters on display as well. Particularly enjoyed watching Chelokhsaev, somebody who came with a vast and distinguished amateur record and somebody as a pro who is looking to move quickly. And we've got some good fights for you again this evening. Top of the bill, Georgi Chelokhsaev against Ike Shakhnazaryan. Chelokhsaev with a recent win against Gadzhialiev. So that is an indicator of the kind of quality of fighter he is. 18 wins, 1 defeat and 1 draw. Andrey Sirotkin on the bill as well, who I last saw in person towards the end of October 2018 when he came to the Copper Box to take on John Ryder in a final eliminator for the WBA super middleweight title. He's dropped down to middleweight, I believe, since then, and it was a slightly curious performance from him in London because all my research had told me that he was a long, loose, kind of quite open southpaw, and that's what John Ryder's research had told him as well. But then when the bell went, he shaped up as quite a compact, orthodox fighter, and he was giving Ryder a few problems until he broke him down towards the middle rounds. He's up against Ukraines Karpets, and then we have an undefeated lightweight Vladimir Myshev, 9-0, who gets in with Oscar Amador. And with you on commentary, myself, Andy Clark, and Barry Jones, we're both back in London. Our Siesta of Siesta Promotions is over in Minsk, Belarus. I'm in East London, Barry's in West London, and Barry, boxing's coming thick and fast now, isn't it? You know, we're in the middle now of the sport returning in terms of promoters and platforms and networks, and it's a good place to be in after such a long time, when we were wondering exactly when we would see anything again.
Yeah, well, there was obviously a worry that this year was going to be written off, and it was all building up for the big 2021. But luckily, you know, boxing is one of the most resilient sports you would ever like to be involved in. So there was always a will for the promoters to find a way around this COVID-19, and they have. Of course, it's been quite successful so far in the UK. It's another big show again this weekend, of course, with Matchroom. What's it called? Is it Matchroom Square Gardens? And outside Eddie Hearn's front lawn or whatever it is. And then, of course, Bob Aaron's been doing shows in the bubble in Las Vegas for over a month now. So yeah, it's good to be back. And Europe now starting to take hold. This is the second show for Belarus, and yeah, start to see not just boxing come back, but come back in different regions, and that's a positive sign.
Absolutely. As you say, there's another BT Sport card tomorrow night. Lyndon Arthur up against Dex Spellman. There was one last week, Joe Joyce against Michael Wallish, and a good southern area title fight between Chris Brook and Ramos Mahmoud. I enjoyed that one, and as you say, Matchroom and Sky get going again on Saturday with what is an entertaining card. Matchroom Square Gardens is one thing I've heard. The best one, the one I like best, is Weekend at Herney's. And there's 4 weekends in a row for that coming up. So our MC is just taking his position in the centre of the ring, so it won't be long now before we get our opening fight of the night in the ring, which I believe will be Vladimir Myshev up against Oscar Amador. Amador is somebody we see really quite a lot of in the United Kingdom, one of a number of Nicaraguan fighters who has moved to Spain in recent times and who gets plenty of work and generally brings a good fight. Myshev, 9 fights and 9 wins.
Добрый вечер. Добрый вечер, уважаемые господа. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Мы в прямом эфире Матч ТВ and live and exclusive on Fight TV, а также в эфире казахстанского телеканала Хабар. Хайлакиш Казахстан, Ал Siesta и промоутерская компания Siesta Boxing в партнерстве с Толчим Беларусь представляют второе боксерское шоу серии Kold Wars. Партнерская компания «Пари-матч». Партнер шоу – торгово-развлекательный центр Diamond City. Республика Беларусь, город Минск. Технический партнер «Ука». Бренд спортивной одежды и экипировки. И мы готовы начать. So let the battle commence! Вашему вниманию, 8-раундовый поединок в легком весе. We present to you 8 rounds of professional boxing from the lightweight division. Встречайте первым. Coming to the ring first, boxer from Nicaragua by way of Hospitalet, Spain, Oscar Amador.
As I mentioned, Amador is one of a number of fighters in recent years who's made the move over to Europe from Nicaragua, and he gets plenty of work. We've seen him in the UK on a number of occasions, in with the likes of Lewis Ritson, Darren Surtees, Jack Catterall, Sam Maxwell, Paddy Donovan, and he's been stopped by those fighters. But having said that, they are towards the upper echelons, and generally speaking, they're a bit too big for him too, because he's at lightweight tonight, which I think is the weight which generally suits him best. He's gone the distance with Tyrone Nurse, Tyrone McKenna and Stephen Ormond, so Amador certainly knows what he's about, and he's got 8 rounds here, 135-pound division against Vladimir Myshev, we will see making his ring walk shortly.
И сейчас прямиком из Москвы. And now, all the way from Moscow, Vladimir Myshev.
Myshev turned pro young. I couldn't find too much evidence of his amateur career from Moscow. He would have had one, but it won't have touched the extremely high standard, which is the Russian national setup by the looks of things. And it's generally been learning fights so far. In this fight, though, he took Artem Ivazidi, who we saw last week against Gaibatullah Gadzhialiev, won that fight on points over 6. Ivazidi, a capable fighter, so they've set him the odd test. He boxed twice last year, both wins.
Vladimir Myshev. Время представить боксеров. Итак, боксер в синем углу. Ему 26 лет. Его рост 168 сантиметров, вес 62 килограмма 900 граммов. Его активе 10 побед и 25 поражений. Он уроженец Никарагуа. Он представляет Templum Gym, Барселона, Испания. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner. He stands at 5.5 feet tall. He weighed in at 138 pounds and 7 ounces at 26 years old. He currently holds a professional record of 10 wins and 25 losses, representing Templum Gym, Barcelona, Spain, Oscar Amador! Ровно по диагонали. Его оппонент из столицы России. Ему 22 года. Рост 170 сантиметров, вес 62 килограмма 900 граммов. Его профессиональный рекорд безупречен. 9 побед, 5 из которых одержаны нокаутом. Из Москвы. Across the ring, with a flawless professional record of 9 wins, with 5 by way of knockout. He stands at 5 feet and 7 inches. He weighed in at 138 pounds and 7 ounces at 22 years old. Fighting out of Moscow, Russia, Vladimir Myshev.
So there's the tail of the tape. Not too much between them in terms of age, in terms of height. Myshev boxing out of that southpaw stance. And as I was saying, as they were making their way into the ring, we can be confident that we know what we'll get from Oscar Amador. A touch of gloves between the two at the start of the fight. And Barry, when you look at the record of someone like Amador, 25 defeats and 8 stoppages, and what that kind of tells you, really, because we know that his career since he moved to Europe has been in the away corner, on the road, against good fighters, some of whom I mentioned. What that tells you is that he doesn't just come to cover up. The fact that he's been stopped tells you that he does come to have a go and try and land some of his own shots. And that really, when you're making your way up, if you're matchmaking for a young fighter, that's better, isn't it, than someone who's just going to come and try and get through.
Yeah, I don't think he necessarily comes to win, let's be honest. But you know, he comes to do his job. But he's like a journeyman from the 90s, if you take Peter Buckley out of the equation, where they'll come and do what they're told to an extent for you to get the experience in the round. But if they think you're useless, then they'll beat you. You know, if they don't think you're up to the task, they'll beat you. If they can feel the quality in your work, then they go, okay, fair enough, I'll survive and I'll make him work hard. But if they think you haven't got it, then, and that's where he has a few wins on his record, because sometimes he'll go, he has a little bit of professional pride, but he'll go, I can't let you have this, mate, you're not up to the task. And I think that's a good lesson for all these kids. Because you have too many easy fights, and then when you step up in a level, you're left wanting.
Well, Myshev just driving Amador back towards the corner there, towards the blue corner, and unloading to the body, just boxing out of a little bit of a crouch. Southpaw, as I said. Wide stance, which means he drops his height just a touch, but it gives you that strong base to punch from. TMT on the front of the shorts there. So a connection there with the money team, Floyd Mayweather. They do have a more and more established base now in Russia. Have put on some cards, one of which Myshev has boxed on, just touching with that jab, looking to see if he can measure that backhand. Amador with the guard nice and tight so far, just inching forward with his front foot, seeing if he can get into range, but then just gets pinned back on the ropes, and a decent bit of body work there from Myshev. That
was a lovely right hook there from Myshev. He dipped low, as you already said. He stayed nice and low, which gives him a different angle of attack. It's quite clever, and it also makes it hard to punch down just hard for the accuracy. But he dipped the legs like if he was going to go to the body, and it just came over the top, not with the same power, but Golovkin-esque, lifting that elbow up and just turning that right hook down. Good little shot. He's quite patient with his work, isn't he? I know he came up really fast to start the round, but you can see him just looking now, waiting for it. No, he wanted to see what Amador had when he attacked, if Amador fired back, but now he's looking to pick his shots a little bit more intelligently.
Just leading off with that right hook, then a step to the side and look for that left hand down the middle. Amador trying to wing a big right hand over the top.
Like to see him when he throws that right hook, even if it doesn't land, because he's taking the right foot on the outside in the southpaw stance. As he pivots, he got Amador lined up there for that left uppercut. He can really drive it through.
Amador just backing off, giving ground in the last 15 seconds of round one. Left hand again there into the body. He looks like he fancies that left hand straight down the middle into the pit of the stomach there, Myshev, which I always think is a bit underrated. People, when you think about bodywork, Barry, often you think about those lovely punches tucked in around the back of the forearm and the elbow, crashing into the floating rib. That's kind of the trademark of real class bodywork. But that straight one, bang into the pit of the stomach, you know, with a little step to the side. I think that could, I've never felt one, I'm glad to say, but I think that could really take the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, well, bodywork, because you think you've got to get close, and obviously you all think about hooks and uppercuts through the middle, but, you know, Pernell Whittaker was he'd lovely to throw straight, you know, from out the distance. You think he'd slide in and he'd throw that straight left hand from the southpaw stance right on the centre of the guard, right to the, as you say, right in the solar plexus. So it was a nice, good start here from Myshev. Very positive, came up really out the blocks really fast, wanted to stamp his authority, then some good shots, and then he settled down and picked his shots quite well, moving around the target after he threw the punches. And I thought, you know, for a man only in his what's that now, his 9th fight, his 10th fight, it's quite intelligent work.
Round 2.
Well, change of bell this week. They had an extremely impressive bell last week, and a bit more of a gong going on at ringside this week, so I don't know what's happened. Maybe it's a different timekeeper, and he's not willing to part with his prized possession if he's not in control of it. And having seen it last week, I don't blame him. Into the start of round 2, Myshev in the white and gold, Amador in the black and yellow, and Myshev, as we expected him to, had the better of that opening round, as described. All wins so far. Hasn't been in with anybody particularly challenging just yet. Nothing very unusual about that. He's 22. He turned pro at 18, 19 years old, so you don't want to rush things. That left hand was maybe a little bit low. Amador certainly suggesting that it was. The referee's not too interested.
It was low, but I think that the idea that he worked to the head and then dipped down to the body to finish the combination. So I think he has good technique and good muscle memory where he's out working with things in the gym, so he knows to finish on a different angle of a shot. So if he does 2 head shots, there again, the little screw shot there through the guard from Myshev. I think he's boxing very nicely, actually. He's being aggressive, but he's trying to be a bit more of an aggressive counter-puncher, isn't he? Just forcing you to make a mistake. Good work there, just a little half a step out, coming back with those straight shots through the guard. It looks good.
Amador just trying to get a jab away. Myshev just sticking out that lead hand. And again there, just tapping with it, just looking to try and measure the distance. Then once more went straight with that left hand to the body.
And he steps in close, Andy, but he always does a dip or a roll when he's in close. So after he throws a shot, or if he takes that slide in, he makes sure he moves the head, whether he's dipping his legs or rolling underneath. And I think that's a good, because then Amador just can't swing wildly, thinking he's in front of him, because he's always moving the body and moving the head. Just makes him, even though he's trying to be quite aggressive, makes him a harder target to hit. And making people miss. When you can't hit someone's really, really frustrating. But when you can't hit someone who's coming at you, obviously Roberto Duran, there's been lots of things on social media this week about Roberto Duran, but he was the master of coming forward, making you miss shots, and it's a heartbreaker.
Again, Myshev just touchy with the jab. I saw all of that, and we spoke about this on a podcast a few weeks ago about the skill of Duran being able to slip shots as he was coming forward, and somebody put something up perfectly exemplifying that, and it's quite a sight. As you described it to me, as I said not that long ago, it is quite a sight to see him advance on someone, that thick mane of black hair flying all over the place as he just slips shots as you're doing your best to pin him on the way in. And the look of panic almost on the opponent's face, knowing I'm not managing to catch him on the way in, and any second now something bad is going to happen.
It's boxing poetry, isn't it? And obviously Myshev here, not quite poetry in motion, but he's boxing very, very nicely. See, it was a little bit low, that shot, and fair enough, but the fact that he's looking to work when he's in close, the variety in his work, he's finishing on a different angle every time he gets in with a combination of in close, and after that bit of a frantic 10-second start in the first round, he's putting pressure on Amador, but not rushing his work, keeping his composure, nice and composed, and he's boxing well. He hasn't taken a shot all night so far, so I think that's two fantastic rounds from the young man. That's actually not a bell, is it? That's a plate.
Round 3.
I think they would claim gong. I think that's the way to talk that one up. And Myshev again, just looking nice and studied in the opening few seconds of round 3, and that's good work up close. He's right up close there, but just dipping at the knees, keeping that head on the move, bangs a couple into the body, and there's just not very much at all that Amador can do with him at the moment for the reasons that Barry's been outlining. It's a bit dispiriting for him. He's not really managing to have any success. He's not looked hurt at any stage, but that could come because there's plenty of time left here.
What was impressive there with that little bit of work to the body, he was half leaning over the front foot, so when he threw the shots and Amador goes to fire back, he doesn't have to take a step back. All he has to do is put his body in the centre of his stance, so his balance is still there, but he's out of range. He just takes a little wider step, but not with the back foot stays there, the front foot takes a little wider step. Doesn't take the back foot out. Just so when he leans over, he's off balance. He leans over his front foot, then his chest over his front knee, still in balance, but then he can lean back to the centre of his stance. It's really clever.
Is that one of the benefits of that wide stance? I sometimes think that it gives you that base. It allows you to pull back to the centre, and that front foot being right on top of your opponent always makes them think that you're on top of them. Psychologically, it makes them feel like you're within punching distance.
Well, what that front foot does, it puts you under pressure. So, and when you feel under pressure, your breathing's erratic. So then, and also, punching when you have to or punching when you want to are two different things. So when you punch when you want to, even if it's a reaction, if you like, your mind's relaxed, you'll flick out, everything's fine with it. When you feel under pressure and you have to punch out the necessity to keep the fella off you, you so often either slow down because you'll tense up, or you'll snatch into punches and they fall short, and your breathing's erratic and you'll run out of steam quicker. So dictating the pace is not about who can work the hardest and the fastest. If you slow a guy down, you can tire him out. And using that front foot and Golovkin does it perfectly. For the guy who's not known for his footwork, he puts that front foot at the centre of your stance, and he dictates everything from that. Even when he's not doing anything, you're always under pressure. You're always feeling like you're in danger. Again, see, but just with it wasn't that pretty from Myshev there. But again, he does a little roll. There's always a little movement after he does, whether he throws a shot or just see again, little roll. Just makes him hard for Amador to fire back because he hasn't got a target right in front of him to hit.
Those are just great habits, aren't they? As the bell goes at the end of the third round, never to stop and admire your work.
They are, and I think listen, they're habits that have to be worked on because someone at a higher level, someone will figure that out, of course. And they'll sit, and you go back to the corner, and the guy, every time he rolls to the left, you dip that right hand over the top, or you step to the right, or whatever it will be. But just the fact that you're doing something after you throw a shot, that means you can. Him doing that little dip and roll just before allowed him to throw the body shots back. But Amador threw a shot, he missed, and he was open. It's good. I think he's boxing for a young man. He's thinking about his work. He's obviously doing stuff, and they'll be happy in the corner because he's clearly doing what they work on in the gym. He's transferring that to a competitive match, which is all you can ask from a young fighter.
Round 4.
So into the fourth, they're scheduled for 8 at lightweight. Vladimir Myshev with his name on the back of his waistband there in the white shorts. Oscar Amador, boxing out of Spain, originally from Nicaragua. He's in the black and yellow, and it's Myshev who's had the better of it. But again there, he just thumped to the body with the left hand. And Amador, give him credit, he is in good shape because he's soaked these up so far, but he's on the receive again once more here, just backed up towards that red corner. And at some point down the stretch, I think this bodywork that he's invested in here, Myshev, may start to have an effect.
Well, Andy, I think it was a left hand to the chin, to be honest. Right at the beginning of the round, he hit him right through the guard. I think he was just a little bit square on Amador, and I think that was the shot. And maybe made flashing lights in his eyes, possibly, because he just backed up a little bit. And this is where Myshev now got to keep their foot on the pedal, you would feel. And that's the difference between, I never had it, so I can't criticise too much, but knowing when to pull the trigger, knowing when to keep the pressure on. Sometimes you can, as you've already alluded to, admire your work too much. And when you're boxing well, you're in a lovely rhythm, but you still have to remember that if, rather than just floating and loving what you're doing, that if there's an opportunity to get the go out there, you've got to take it, because sometimes that can be regrettable as the rounds go on.
Just past the midway point of round 4, and again Myshev throws one to the body and then just moves away to his left-hand side. Amador trying to send that right hand over the top, but he fell short with it. And just frustration there from Amador. He wound up with a big left hand, and there's nothing wrong with the the desire here from Amador. He wants to try and land, he wants to do some damage, and you can see the frustration in him. You can hear it actually at times when he's looking to try and throw, but finding the target cleanly is proving to be a very difficult thing. He tucked up okay there, Amador, as that 1-2 came through, took it mostly on the gloves. Myshev just goes for a little walk. And again, it's that whole thing about, you know, not being able to land, but the guy not moving away from you. He's not giving you any space. He's right on you. He's right in on your chest. He's making you miss because he's moving that body back and forth over that front foot and then back into the centre of his stance. And it is because that wide, the front foot's wide, the back foot's in, you know, in a lovely position. And that allows him to have that lower lead hand then for that reason, which I'm never really a lover of, but it gives him that looseness for the upper body movement, of course. I think he's boxing tremendously well. I think we know he's up against a guy who loses for a living. But as you've already said at the start of the contest, you know, he tries to have a go, and you can see it now. He's frustrated. He wants to give this young kid a little bit of a whack and make him feel that he's in a fight, but he can't find the target. Well, he boxed a couple of times last year. Myshev in April, winning by third round stoppage against a 3-0 fighter. Then at the end of last November, winning on points over 6 rounds against Sotny Sultanishvili, who was 3-3. So I don't think it'll be too long before they start to think about giving him a bit of a test. It's perfectly understandable that that didn't come tonight because fighters are coming straight out of a pretty bizarre period in all our lives, of course, but in the context of an athlete's career, it's impossible to know what kind of effect this was always going to have on the sport. There was of course going to be one. So Myshev, I think this is a good opponent for him for what is a back in a saddle kind of fight. If he goes the 8 rounds, and it looks like he will do because we're just past the halfway point now, and Amador, although he's been wearing quite a few shots, has never really looked particularly hurt apart from that one instance. Just as I say that, he is dumped down on the seat of his pants. A long left hand got straight through, and I think he was caught a bit square there, Amador. The left hand from Myshev was pretty much at the end of its journey, not quite at the biting point, so I don't think he's really hurt. We'll see now as Myshev looks to maybe set about him, but that was tremendous. Just as I said, he hasn't looked hurt. He was knocked down straight away. And maybe he's a little bit buzzed here, Barry, because he's looking to hold on. There was a great uppercut in our little exchange there as well from Myshev, and Amador felt that. I think he'll do his best to survive here, Amador, but a couple of clean shots. That left hand was a lovely punch. It was just like the one at the beginning of the previous round, which he took quite well. But again, as you said, he's a little bit square-footed. And the delivery was fantastic here from Myshev. And again, on the front foot, making him miss, picking his shots. There's a lot to like about this kid. Amador just trying to come forward himself there, deciding that attack is maybe the best form of defence, because when he looks to try and cover up, he's got that high guard, and the problem with that is that, well, quite simply, you can't see what's coming your way, and really you just have to wait for the other person to stop punching. And Myshev, when he was putting his punches together there, just didn't really look like he was going to. He's just beginning to turn the screw here, and that's always good to see, because he's got this fight under control. And we often see these kinds of contests, of course. You expect the left-hand side to win, but you expect the right-hand side to give them a little bit of a workout, a run-out, maybe ask them a few questions. And often fighters are happy to box the rounds, get them under their belt, get the win, 80 points to 72. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's always good to see someone think it slightly differently and think, okay, you know, I've got this going the way I want it to. Let's just try and ramp things up and see if I can get the stoppage. Again, like, so even though he's coming forward, he's so elusive, isn't he? So hard hit, and that's been the hardest thing for Amador. And Amador's, he got to start. No, his tank's got to start emptying soon, because he's swinging shots and missing. And when you miss and you got to bring that shot all the way back, it's more tiring missing than it is taking a shot at times. It's lovely. Again, a long left hand. Well, there goes the bell at the end of round 5. Myshev just walking back to the corner. More good work from him. I'm sure we'll get a look at the knockdown in between rounds. Staying on his feet in the corner, as is Amador. Amador, though, heaving the breath in. Not so Myshev.
Hopefully now we're going to see that nice, that's a lovely shot. That's perfectly delivered. That is. There was a turn from the waist, from the hips there as well. Do you know what? He looks a little bit like Frankie Gavin there. That little movement there was a little bit Frankie Gavin-esque, wasn't it? That little low right hand, little slip back there with the feet. There's a little fight back there from Amador, landing with the body shot, but it's still Myshev for the best part, making him miss with ease and picking his shots without any real thought anymore with it. He knows where the target is now, and he's just doing what he wants at the minute. I think it's a fantastic, for the young man, it's a fantastic display.
Round 6.
So into the 6th.
And this is the sort of fight that, even though he's meant to win it, and we know that, but Amador's tried to have a go, and Myshev's put him in his place. And remember, Myshev's, Amador, as you've already noted, is used to boxing like welterweights. And big guys who are whacking him. So he'll feel quite comfortable this way to be able to absorb most of the shots and feel like the bigger guy in there. But this is the sort of fight for me. You see Myshev now, and you sort of say, we can put him in a test. 10 rounder against a guy who's only lost a few fights. I think he's way off the top level, of course, but I think he's ready for that next step up now into double figures. Unless something goes dramatically wrong, of course, in the next few rounds.
Well, it's hard to see that. He switches orthodox for the first time, I think. Very briefly, though. Goes back into the southpaw stance. And you were right, as you said, between rounds, that there was a touch of the Frankie Gavins about that, just that little pull back and dip of the shoulder. It was almost exactly like watching him. And he was a fantastically skillful fighter, Frankie Gavin. Always used to really enjoy watching him. Still the only English male fighter to win a World Championship gold medal. As an amateur.
Yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely. The pros just wasn't his bag, unfortunately. Saying the pros wasn't his bag, he still boxed at a massively high level and was fantastic, but the expectations of what we felt he should have achieved, just maybe the pressure was a bit too much and didn't quite hit the heights we thought he was going to.
So just missing with the right hand there, Myshev, a minute rather, remaining in round 6. He's not been quite as busy in this round as he was in the previous one.
No, just like to see maybe just punch it together in combinations a little bit, like he was in the first couple of rounds. He's picking the shots. He gaps in machine the work now. Just looks like he got plenty in the tank. Oh, good shot. Lovely shot.
Short right hand on the inside there was effective, wasn't it? You could see Amador. He was rocked right onto his heels and facially too. He just grimaced as he felt that one right to the body there as well from Myshev. He's got some spiteful hands on him. He might not look particularly heavy-handed, but you can tell from the reaction of Amador that when he finds the target, it hurts.
It's the accuracy, isn't it? That's what it is. I think he hits you on the button every time. He places his shot so well, and the speed and the angles he's capturing. There's some of the shots you don't see, but that just stiffened the legs in a little short right hook over the top. That's a lovely, just a little flick with the jab, just on the top of the head, and then you put. Oh, they've had beautiful shots. Did well there, Amador, to be fair, to absorb that and move on.
Did you read Boxing News last week, Barry?
Seconds out.
I've got it. I haven't read it fully. I did read the article on Gavin.
Well, there was whether it was last week or the week before, they did an in his own words with Acelino Freitas. Oscar Amador has decided that after 6 rounds, enough is enough, and he has pulled up the drawbridge there with a couple of rounds remaining. We didn't see any visible signs of distress from him, but I think it was just the cumulative effect of those accurate, sharp hands, and it's good that he's got the stoppage there, Myshev. It might not be in the spectacular fashion that he would really have liked it, but as you've been saying, that's a really good performance because he's just worn down a tough fighter there who has been stopped a few times before, but generally by fighters in higher weight divisions, fighters like Jack Catterall, Lewis Ritson, Darren Surtees, who are noted as being big punchers, fighters who can really do some damage. So really, you've got to give him a good 8 or 9 out of 10 there.
I thought he was brilliant. He came out in the first round, not full out of the gate. He was a little bit too fast, but I think he just wanted to see what Amador had, and but then he settled down really well, put his punches together tremendously. He was picking his shots. With the variety in his work was good. Some sort of sneaky screw shots. He wasn't fleet-footed as such, but even some of the footwork was good around the target. But what was most impressive was he was staying close to the target, and the upper body movement, the lateral movement, not allowing Amador to fire back every time he got caught. That was what was most impressive about him, and that was what you could see while you could step him up a level. Because if he can do that at a higher level, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare to fight against.
Just taking a while to get those gloves off. A little shake of the head there from Amador. But that was tough. It was a hard night's work for him. And 6 rounds in the end proved to be enough.
He's definitely one of those kids you'll think, I put a little note next to his name for thinking, the next time I see that name, I'll be, it won't just be a flick through the pages, looking at the results. It'll be, if I can get any footage, see how he did perform, because he was a lot of ability, a lot of class, and I expect him to move on a little bit further than he is right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, по истечении 6-го раунда ввиду отказа секунданта победу одерживает боксер красного угла Владимир Myshev.
Yes, as you say, definitely look forward to seeing him again. It's always interesting to see these fighters early in their career, fighters that you wouldn't necessarily see in a UK ring that you would normally be aware of, and that's what's interesting about this kind of venture, the Kold Wars with Siesta and Siesta Boxing, is that over the last couple of weeks we've had a really good look at some fighters we wouldn't otherwise have done. He's just seized the microphone to say a few thank yous. I can't pretend to be able to translate this, but hopefully for his sake he's able to sell a few tickets when we get shows back with crowds, with audiences, because obviously that's an important part of life for a young fighter. And the reason I mentioned Boxing News before we saw the stoppage there, Barry, was because Acelino Freitas was in it either last week or the week before, and he mentioned you. He talked about the fight, and then he said how glad he was to see that you were now an expert commentator and doing really well. So I just wondered if you'd seen that, if you were aware of that, because that was quite nice, I thought.
Seen it? I wrote it. He lied anyway. He said he knocked me down 7. I knocked him down in the first round. He knocked me down 7 times, which is a total fabrication. It was 6 times that he knocked me down. I'm very particular about that.
Well, quite right. These details are important. You can't just go making these things up. Fake news from Acelino Freitas.
Do you know what though? It's a funny thing, because I'm very proud of that fight, and the reason being was, whatever the reasons and all, we all got reasons why this and that. The truth is, he was too good for me and he battered me, and that's fine. It's one of the proudest moments of my life because I was up against a guy who was too good for me, and I was rightfully beaten, and I got knocked down 6 times, but I got up 6 times, and I'm more proud of that than most things in my life. It's the weirdest thing. Why would you be proud of a defeat? It's crazy, but the fact that I've never been on the floor my entire life, amateur, pro, and I had a great amateur career, boxing at the highest level, but yeah, I've never been on the floor in my life, and then to get hit down for the first time and get up and then keep getting up, I was quite proud of myself. Because when you win and usually because you're too good for the guy, and you can feel it most often. Not always, some fights are hard, but most often you just feel you're too good for the guy. And there's a few fights in between where you're struggling, but that was the time when I knew from the very first punch he hit me with that I was in trouble.
Well, I suppose it's because you don't know whether you've got that in you until you actually have to do it. You might suspect, and you would hope, and you would think, if that happens to me, if I get knocked down, of course I'll keep getting back up. But you don't know that. Nobody does until it happens. And I can understand that. I can understand that because you prove something to yourself, don't you? Everybody gets outdone in their career as an athlete at some point, except for a handful of people. It comes to everybody. It's in the post, and it's how you react to it, I guess.
It is, but also he wouldn't have beaten me because I had a bit of a stitch the night before, and I had a spot on the back of my leg, and my ankles were a bit sore and stuff, and I had loads of issues why I didn't shave my head, and there was lots of things why I lost that fight. Lots of genuine reasons. Nothing to do with the guy punching me, of course.
It's interesting you mentioned Peter Buckley earlier on because he boxed Acelino Freitas, and Freitas is one of the very few people to stop him. And I sat down with him, me and Matt Macklin, a while ago now actually, for a podcast, and I said, what were you thinking taking an 8-rounder against Acelino Freitas? Because 8 rounds is a long time, and he was 18-0 with 18 knockouts, I think, at the time. And Peter just laughed and admitted that he didn't really know who he was.
I rang Pete to say I'm boxing Acelino Freitas, and he hung up on me.
I think Nobby Nobbs took the fight for him, as was the way. That was how it worked. That famous Birmingham stable of away corner fighters, and Peter just wasn't, in true Buckley fashion, just wasn't that interested. He wasn't bothered. He'd have taken a fight with pretty much anybody. But I think he said he realised pretty quickly that this wasn't a great idea, and maybe words were exchanged between him and Nobby after that one. But yeah, he was something else. He was a hell of a puncher, wasn't he?
A lot of other fighters, of course, he'd come up against people who he couldn't. He wasn't a bully person, but he could a bully in the ring, couldn't bully, and, couldn't put a dent in, and they forced him to quit. So like you said, everyone has their limits.
So we're just waiting for our next fight to make its way into the ring. It's 10 rounds at middleweight between Andrey Sirotkin and Artem Karpets, and Sirotkin is an interesting character. Spent a bit of time around him 2 Octobers ago when he boxed John Ryder in what was the final eliminator with the WBA for their super middleweight title. It wasn't ever entirely clear whether it was the final eliminator for the super title or the regular title. It didn't seem to really matter too much. They were 3 and 4 in the rankings, him and John Ryder, and Ryder of course was on a real roll at that point. And did get the win, but Sirotkin, as I said right at the start, surprised everybody by shaping up as an orthodox fighter, and he was causing a few problems. He was kind of fiddling Ryder out of the fight, but in the end he got the job done, stopping him in the 7th round, so there wasn't any great drama. But the reason he's interesting, Sirotkin, is that he's one of these rare boxers who doesn't really need to do this. As I understand it, he has a significant fund of personal wealth. He chooses to box, and you don't see too many in that category. Well, this is Artem Karpets coming into the ring now, 36 years old, born and raised in the Ukraine. He now boxes out of Warsaw, And he's had a career of two halves. He really has. He won his first 21 fights, boxing out of the home corner. Won the Ukrainian super welterweight title. But he's been 0-14 since then, but he's been in with some good fighters, the likes of Karol Jeremeta, the European champion, until recently. Last box last November. So since he faced Ryder, Sirotkin, he had a win last July. That was still at super middleweight. Then he dropped down to middleweight to win a minor WBC ranking belt. That was in February. So he's not been that long out of the ring. He won by decision over 10 rounds against a fighter called Andrey Sirotkin. Very fluctuating scores, which always makes me wonder when I see a real wide spread.
Referee в ринге, the man in charge of the action, Vladimir Myshev. Пришло время представить вам оппонентов. It's now time to introduce to you the boxers. Боксер синего угла. Ему 36 лет. Его рост 186 сантиметров, вес 73 килограмма, 200 граммов. В его активе 21 победа и 14 поражений. Из города Кременчуг, Украина. Fighting out of the blue corner, holding a record of 21 wins and 14 losses. He stands at 5 feet and 11.5 inches. He weighed in at 161 pounds 4 ounces. Straight out of Kremenchuk, Ukraine, Kold Karpets. Его соперник в красном углу. Ему 35 лет. Его рост 176 сантиметров, вес 73 килограмма, 300 граммов. На данный день его рекорд 17 побед при единственном поражении. В нем слились воедино бойцовский дух и добрый нрав. Как река Волга и Ока в его родном Нижнем Новгороде. Будьте готовы приветствовать. In the red corner, holding a record of 17 wins and a single loss. Standing at 5 feet and 9.5 inches. Weighing in at 161 pounds and 6 ounces. He is 35 years of age from Nizhny Novgorod. Andrey Sirotkin.
So that's Sirotkin, 35 years old, from Nizhny Novgorod in Russia. Started out as a kickboxer, was full contact world champion at 76 kilos. That was just over 10 years ago, back in 2009. Turned pro as a boxer in February 2014 at 28 and moved around a bit initially, fighting in Russia, Germany, the USA, but then got his hands on a ranking belt, the WBA Intercontinental. Got that by beating a faded Ricardo Mayorga. Defended against Ryan Ford, who we saw in with Joshua Buatsi not too long ago, and managed to rise through the rankings without doing a great deal, it has to be said, but he got up to number 4, and that saw him box the WBA number 3. John Ryder as detailed in that final eliminator, and Ryder did eventually get his opportunity against Callum Smith, an opportunity which he grasped with both hands and boxed really, really well. And it was a coin toss at the end of the fight as to who was going to get that one. I was commentating on that one, and for me, I felt it was all on the final round in the end. The scorecards came out and they were they were far too wide. I didn't have any problem with Smith getting the decision. I felt it could have gone either way, but the scores didn't really reflect the work that Ryder did. He did have some problems though, John, Ryder, against Sirotkin, because Sirotkin has come out and started off in an orthodox stance here too, and this was not what we expected when we saw him at the Copper Box, because every fight before that he had been a kind of languid southpaw. But I must say that when he boxed orthodox, he did look better. He looked more compact. He was more difficult to hit. So, as I say that, he goes straight back into the southpaw stance. So he's obviously going to switch during the course of this fight.
And then as soon as he switched, he got caught with a little jab there from Karpets. So, yeah, maybe he switched back to orthodox now. You can see that he's naturally left-handed, because when he's orthodox, that left hand that left jab is a real solid shot. But it seems just double the jab up though, just to shorten the distance. He's trying to throw that right hand sometimes from a little bit too far out, so just doubling up with the jab. He throws a solid one, the second one, only got a touch really, just to give him the range to fire that right hand right through the target. Also Karpets moving a little bit there, just a little jab maybe to the left shoulder there, the Karpets, just to stop the movement.
Boxed 4 times last year, Karpets. Last time at the end of November against a 7-0 fighter called Xavier Colin. Apart from Jeremeta, who was rumoured as a Golovkin opponent for a stretch, he hasn't been in with anybody of particular distinction, Karpets. Has been stopped a few times in his 14 defeats. Sirotkin just reaching for that right hand a bit.
Yeah, again, and the double jab takes that out then, because you have to take 2 steps in, 2 little short steps, rather than just 1 big step or overreaching, which is what he's doing. He's too far away, so he has to lean over that front foot, and you lose a little bit of balance, of course. So look at a decent little round. He started quite strong and tried to dictate the pace, but as the round got on, even though there was no danger of who won that round, Karpets just started to feel a little bit more comfortable, didn't he, in the last sort of 20-30 seconds, and landed with a sneaky right hand of his own and made Sirotkin miss with a few little shots. See, in their edge, little turn of the shoulder making Sirotkin miss. And again, as you already said, he threw that right hand a little bit too far out, and that's, for me, is what that double jab will take away.
Seconds out. Второй round. Round 2.
So into the second round, Andrey Sirotkin in the black and white with the maroon belt. Artem Karpets in the black with the yellow stripes, and it was Sirotkin's round, that opener. Karpets though looks fairly solid. He's in good shape certainly.
I don't know what Karpets, it just showed there, Karpets, that when he uses that jab, it's a good little weapon, isn't it? He doubles up with it and just nicks a little bit of space with the front foot and throws the right hand. So, you know, just even if he just throws just to make Sirotkin reset all the time, then makes it harder for Sirotkin then to bully him back. Not throwing punches will just allow someone like Sirotkin just to walk right onto you. Nice jab.
Sirotkin just trying to keep that head on the move, then looked for the jab, got a little bit too close as he tried to move in behind it. And looks for that right hand again there off the back of a double jab to the body.
Well, the punches are too slow, aren't they, from Sirotkin? That's the problem. So I think right now, in this round so far, Karpets has just been able to read the shots quite easily. There's weight behind the shots, but it's just no acceleration or pace in the work here of Sirotkin.
Well, what was quite curious against Ryder was that he came apart really quite quickly. The first half of the fight, at halfway, I don't remember how I had it exactly at halfway, but there wasn't much in it. He may even have been slightly ahead because Ryder was thrown a bit by the fact that he didn't box as a southpaw. And he was struggling to get to grips with it for a while, but 12 rounds is a long time. And then when he did start to find the target, Sirotkin caved in rather quickly. I don't think Karpets will necessarily be capable of putting him under that kind of pressure, but he's not having any trouble with him, Karpets. Certainly just stepped to the right-hand side there, nice little turn.
No, the heavier shots are coming from Sirotkin. He's landed with a couple of right hands, but I think for me, the better work for me, even though there's not much purchase behind the punches, have been from Karpets. I think he's been able to make Sirotkin miss quite comfortable here so far in this round. Good movement there from Karpets, but it's so telegraphed and slow there from Sirotkin that he doesn't deserve to hit the target. He needs more energy in his work. For me, that was a clear round, I thought, for Karpets. He's physically strong here, Sirotkin. You can see that, and I think he could do the more damage, but just telegraphing some of his work. That was actually, even though he missed it, that was actually a little bit better. But for the most part, it's this. He's overreaching with the right hand. When he throws that jab, it's too laboured, and his work's just way too easy to read. And Karpets there, I think he enjoyed that round.
Seconds out. Третий раунд. Round 3.
So into the third, Sirotkin just pushing out with that lead hand, that jab. Not with any great authority though. Looking for the right hand, but again was just short with it. Karpets, who's got a slight advantage in terms of height, in terms of reach, I would say, looking at these two.
Again,
Sirotkin.
Again for Sirotkin there, the moving the head's a good idea, but you've got to do it. You've got to try and slip forward coming with it. You want to do that, as you've seen in the previous fight, and keep putting pressure on Karpets. You want to be moving with an intention to throw, to make him miss and make him pay, not to sit on the back foot and do it like this here. He's making him miss, he's dipping low, but he can't fire back because he's sitting down on himself.
Karpets landed a decent little left hand in the middle of all of that. Sirotkin tried to just open out a bit with an overhand right, then again dips low at the waist. Moving that head, just touching out with kind of right hand lead there, just almost kind of measuring the distance, jab to the body, then looks for that right hand over the top but doesn't reach with it.
What Karpets needs to do is feint with the front foot, take a little step back, sit down on that back leg and really commit with that right hand over the top.
It's the final minute of round 3. Sirotkin looking for that left hand. Again, didn't really get through, but drew some applause from ringside.
He's made more of an effort in this round here, Sirotkin. He's tried to up the pace a little bit, rather quicken his feet. Not been massively successful, but the idea is there at least.
closing seconds of round 3. Sirotkin just inching forward, again looking for that left hand, just moved in onto the shoulder behind it.
I think he had more success. He tried to make an effort to push Karpets back with a little bit more velocity in his work, maybe, but it's a little bit too obvious to read. That's the worry for me, that his work is obvious to read, and that just makes him an easy target to counter off, and that's the problem he's having. But at least I still think he did enough just to nick that wrong for me there, Sirotkin. But he still needs a quicker. I still the double jab. He just needs a bit more speed and a little more step on the just double pump with the front foot when you throw the jab, and it just gives you a little bit more energy. You're on the balls of your feet, and then you can fire through this with a bit more speed in the right hand. Change the tempo will make Karpets a little bit uncomfortable.
So into the 4th. Karpets just looking to try and use that left hand as Sirotkin dipped low at the waist. It depends to an extent, doesn't it, really, just how much of a fight Karpets wants to make of this. He's an away corner fighter. He's not in the habit of coming to win, and Sirotkin just looking a bit busier again in the closing stages of the first minute of this round. But if Karpets has some ambition here, then this could get interesting.
Yeah, but you can see the ambition is not really there, because he was comfortable for it, because it was more like a sparring session, wasn't it? So he was nice and relaxed, and the shot.
Well, down he goes with the body shot. He's been folded in half there, and you can see the pain on his face, and I don't think he's going to make it here. He's not going to beat the count, just rolls over onto his back, and the referee is counting him out. And Sirotkin has won this by stoppage early in the 4th round. And just as I was saying that Karpets, if he wanted to go for it tonight, he could maybe get something done. A few seconds later, he found himself skewered by Andrey Sirotkin. It'll be interesting to have another look at it.
I think it's almost like a little bit of a hook come uppercut, isn't it, right through the midriff, I think, if I remember rightly. But it wasn't about what Karpets had to offer. It was about what Sirotkin wasn't doing, and it was sustained pressure, more energy in his work, more speed in his punches, and I think then he did. I think on the waistline, that one. See at this angle now. Right on the badge. Oh, that's, depending on how high or low the shorts are, that might be a good shot, to be honest. They're saying that the shorts don't look too high, do they? That's the worry there.
And it did look as though the gloves kind of half blocked that as it landed. I don't want to cast aspersions here on Karpets, but I would be tempted to say that was possibly a little bit of a soft one.
But he was boxing well when it was all at an even pace, and Sirotkin was looking very laboured for me, and very slow and ponderous at times. Then Karpets was in the fight, of course. He was massively in the fight. He was 2-1 down in rounds, but he was in this. Once Sirotkin up the pace, then you could see the difference in levels.
На первой минуте 16-й секунде 4-го раунда. Победу нокаутом одерживает боксер красного угла Андрей Sirotkin.
So So Sirotkin gets a win, which he would have been favourite to do. And we'll just keep an eye and see what happens with his career going forward. At 35 years old, he doesn't have an enormously long time left. But he's one of the few fighters, really, who hasn't found his career disrupted too much by COVID-19, because he did box in February and he's boxed again towards the back end of July. So there aren't that many out there, but he is one who, of course, he will have felt the effects of lockdown and everything else like everybody else, but in terms of his activity rate, it's not been impeded too much. But to be brutally honest, Barry, it's difficult to see him getting back towards that kind of level of fight, that status of fight that he was in against John Ryder, which was a final eliminator. I guess he just keeps going if he wants to and just sees what happens.
Well, you never know, of course, but I think that win looks better on paper than it was in reality. I didn't think he boxed particularly well. He showed more flaws than he did positive things, to be honest, in his work. And so if you weren't watching that, you would see he got a fourth round stoppage. But if you were to watch that fight in its entirety and you were a potential opponent, you would see lots of things that you could capitalise on. And I think that was and for me, the pondering approach. It might have been because he was up against a guy who was below his level. Might have been because he couldn't, like you said, he's boxing in February, so he can't really be rusty. But the whole situation, maybe he hasn't been training as well as he would have been in a normal life scenario. But either way, he was slow and easy to hit off the counter. And at the higher level, of course, getting hit so easily when you're over the front foot can be crucial and fight ending.
So Team Sirotkin jump out of the ring. Georgi Chelokhsaev and Ike Shakhnazaryan, we believe, will be next up for us, and this should be an interesting fight. Chelokhsaev is a good fighter, 26 years old, 18 wins, 1 defeat, 1 draw. The defeat came when he was match tough. Early in his career, he was 5-0-1, and in the away corner against an 8-0 fighter.
Скоро вернемся в эфир. Приберегите эмоции.
And he's up against Ike Shakhnazaryan, Chelokhsaev. Chelokhsaev's biggest win, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the programme, was in November 2018 when he beat Gaibatullah Gadzhialiev, who we saw last week. And he looked good last week, Gadzhialiev, a former amateur star with Azerbaijan, a very experienced World Series boxing fighter. They topped a Russian copper company bill, and he beat him tight over the 10 rounds by decision to win the Eurasian Boxing Parliament title, a significant title in this part of the world. He's had a couple of fights since then and won both of them. Shakhnazaryan has won the WBO European title earlier in his career. He's been over to the United States to box Abdul Lopez. He was taken over there by Top Rank as an opponent, and then found himself in a similar role against Edward Troyanovsky. So he's been in with some good quality opposition. Slight alarm bells for me in his last fight. He was in against Elnor Samadov. I watched that one yesterday, and he pulled out with a couple of rounds to go, citing an injury. But I think really he'd had enough, and on the cards it was level on 2 cards and he was just slightly behind on the other. I thought that was a fairly generous interpretation for Shakhnazaryan, but the way that he ran up the white flag to an extent just make you just wonder a bit about his desire going forward. And we'll find out about that tonight, because he's in the away corner and he hasn't boxed for 15 months. So this is a crucial night for him, really. He's got to show that desire, or he may not be too much longer for boxing, I would probably say. So it looks like we've got a short break here. So Barry, I just want to ask you, because we were talking about this before we went on air, and it's in a way relevant to the fight that we've just seen there, because we're talking about John Ryder and mentioned Callum Smith, and of course when you mention Callum Smith and Ryder in recent times, then the name of Canelo Alvarez generally tends to crop up, as it does for any fighter with a world title or world level aspirations at middleweight, super middleweight. Not so much light heavyweight, I don't think. I think that was a fairly one-off foray when he beat Kovalev, but he is the fight now, isn't he? For a long time it was Floyd Mayweather. People talked about the Mayweather sweepstakes. Now it's Canelo. He's the boxer that everybody wants to fight. It did look like it was going to be Billy Joe Saunders before lockdown, and then he seemed to be the favourite when it looked like we were coming out of lockdown, but he ruled himself out of that. Ryder's been spoken about. Jason Quigley's been spoken about. So's Toriano Johnson, but with this monster contract that Canelo has signed with DAZN, they've got to get him in big fights, surely, haven't they?
Well, you would think so, and you would think unification fights would be the ones that would really attract the layman of the sport rather than the real guys who are in it every day of the week. So a Callum Smith or Billy Joe Saunders would be unifying these titles. That would be more interesting, but I still think him and Golovkin will make a great fight every time they fight, so I would be happy to see that. But from a British perspective, of course, any one of those guys gets a shot, Ryder or Smith or Saunders, and I'd be over the moon for those guys. Because it really is the lottery hit, isn't it?
And of those three, who would you say would be the best equipped against Canelo? It's Saunders is a really interesting one for me. I've always thought that he's just an immaculately skillful fighter. That doesn't make me any kind of genius. Anybody can see that. But to the extent that, until maybe a couple of years ago, a bit like Fury, I would always struggle to bet against Billy Joe Saunders, no matter who he was boxing. But I just wonder whether the lack of activity over the last 2 or 3 years and getting to the age that he's got to, whether those skills, the reflexes, the stamina maybe, just things will have lost their sharpness to the point where he would no longer pose the kind of threat to Canelo that I think he would have done 2 or 3 years ago.
I think, and there's no shame in this, Billy's fantastic. He's beautiful to watch. I was there in Canada, in Montreal, just outside Montreal, when he put on a masterclass, of course. But I think Canelo's a better fighter, so I would massively favour Canelo. But what Billy is, he's not always an exceptional fighter to watch. He's exceptionally hard to beat. So he's skillful to beyond belief, and he's tough. And that combination, even though he's not the biggest puncher, but that combination alone makes you very hard to beat. Because people think they can walk through you because you're a mover, and they can't. And he's hard to hit, and he makes you think about everything you do. And he can annoy you, Billy, make you miss by half a millimeter, and then just flick you with a jab that doesn't hurt, but gets on your nerves, and he force you to make a mistake. But he can also plant his feet and dig in and make you feel the power. So he has so many things to his arsenal. He's fantastic. But as you said, I think motivation for him has been I can't believe it because he's been so successful. But motivation for him, I think, has been an issue in the past. Going up in the weights, but I don't think he really needed to. And never thought he was a light middleweight. Never on a middleweight. He grew into the weight, of course, and he's grown out of that weight now. And he was big enough for it in the end. But I think he would have been a light middleweight champion of the world. I honestly thought so. But he's proved me wrong time and time again. But I think Canelo's just. Listen, he can't go on forever either. He's only 30, but he's been boxing since he was 15 or 14 professionally. So, how strong are his legs going to continue to go on? So he's got to wane at some point. But I still think right now he's still not just the cash cow, but he's still the best fighter in and around his division by a stretch for me.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of bigger than titles, isn't he? He's got to that mega stage, that mega point in anyone's career, because I think he's relinquished that WBA regular super middleweight title that he won against Rocky Fielding, but obviously it just doesn't matter. But when you look at that division, what is quite curious about it is that Smith is the WBA champion, Benavidez is the WBC champion, Saunders is with the WBO, and it's Caleb Plant, isn't it, with the IBF? And off the top of my head, they are all undefeated. But there doesn't really seem to be any prospect of any of them fighting each other, which just seems bizarre, doesn't it? It just seems like such a waste. I know there are problems with different networks and the like, but to have four fighters...
There's not though. There's not though now. I know Plant is a PBC fighter maybe, but the rest of them pretty much aligned now. They never used to before, of course, because obviously, you know, when Saunders was with Frank Warren and mainly on BT Sport, but now with both Saunders and Callum Smith boxing on Sky quite regular, and you know, Billy's moved over, and also with the zone as well. There's an alignment there with Eddie Hearn and Canelo's a DAZN fighter. Then I think those three shouldn't be too hard to make, you would think. But listen, we're at the top of the highest level here, where we just want to see the fights, because we're saying, well, you get paid 4 million or 5 million. Who cares? Well, they care, because that's $1 million difference maybe, or I don't know. You know, you want to get as much as you can, because that might be the fight where you cash out in, and understandably. But I know, but they've got to get to a point where you think, like all fighters, you want to be the best you could possibly be, and they've got to a level now where they're not just good, they're potentially chasing greatness. To beat Canelo Alvarez is on your way to being an all-time great fighter, of course, because he's going to go down as one for sure. So just that, to be in a chance to do that, you almost got to be thinking money can't be the issue here. But that's me saying that. I'm a retired fighter, sat at home, so you know, I'm not the one who's going to be having to maybe lose $1 million to get the fight. So I can understand that point of view. But as a boxing fan, I don't care about the money. I just want to see the best fights, and any one of those. I think the Smith and Canelo fight is a more entertaining fight than possibly all of them, to be honest. Except for Golovkin, that fight will trump everyone for drama, I think. But I think out of the Brits, I think Smith and Canelo would be a real good fight, really good fight from the first bell, not warm up at all. It would be really good.
Well, I'd love to see it. I would absolutely love to see that. Callum Smith has had a lot of success in his career so far. He won the World Boxing Super Series, and the financial rewards for that were significant, and it was a big win against George Groves to take the title, and he probably hasn't had the opportunity since then that he would have liked to have done. But as you say, at the top level there, it's a big political, financial chess match where a lot of the time you can find yourself locked in a stalemate, really. One interesting development this week in another red-hot division, which is welterweight, seems to be that Bob Arum seems keen to make Terence Crawford against Manny Pacquiao. Now, I don't think anybody would complain about that, would they? That the fight that everybody's been talking about, of course, is Crawford against Spence. Spence will have to see what happens when he comes back to full fitness. I don't know where he is with that following his automobile accident, but obviously he's got 2 of the belts, and that's the fight that everybody would talk about, but the fight that did seem most difficult to make because of the great divide between promoters and networks that we just alluded to. But Crawford Pacquiao, that is easy to get excited about that.
It is, you know, it is, and also it's a timing wise again. You know, he's been around for, I think he was boxing even when I was fighting Pacquiao. That's how long he's been going on for. So how many times can he go to the well? And I think, you know, it might be the perfect fight. But he's still good enough to beat anybody on his given day. But I think it might be the perfect fight for passing the baton, so to say, for Crawford, who's looked just phenomenal in almost every fight he's in. You know, he's so clever and athletic and committed and nasty at times as well. There's not many things that he can't do. I think the Spence fight's a long way off. I think Spence will box Danny Garcia before he goes anywhere near Crawford. I'm not saying he's running from him at all, but I think with the networks there and the money involved, I think that's a very difficult fight, almost impossible fight to make now, I would feel, to be fair.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating that, because it would be absolutely terrific. That fight against Sean Porter last October time was superb. It was a tremendous watch, and PBC generally have got that welterweight division on lockdown, apart from Crawford, of course, who's with Top Rank, and Pacquiao, who's basically doing his own thing these days, and we'll just have to wait to see how all of that pans out. It's one of the frustrations, of course, that you don't always get to see the contest that you want to see, but I think the way to look at it is just to be happy about the ones that we do get to see, and we've had a lot of good fights over the last few years, certainly. And another thing that's been in the news this week is that we're just waiting for the final event. By the way, I think it's Russian TV that set the timings here, so we're just calmly, patiently biding our time until we see the MC re-enter the centre of the ring. Joshua and Fury. So it looks like Joshua against Pulev is going to be either the 5th or the 12th of December. That's what Eddie Hearn has said this week. And I also read somewhere that they're looking at Fury Wilder for December the 19th. Obviously, with the idea being that those two will win their fights and then fight each other next year. That's the dream scenario. It's what everybody wants to see. A full belt unification in the heavyweight division has never been done before. When Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield fought for Undisputed in the late 90s, it was for the WBC, WBA and IBF. At that point, the WBO title was around, of course. It was around since 1989, but it wasn't taken that seriously, I think it's fair to say, in the heavyweight division. But when you look at those two fights they've got, Barry, Joshua against Pulev, I personally, I would expect him to beat Pulev. Pulev is a good, very good, all-round, solid fighter, but not somebody who I think would cause too many problems for him. It's that third fight between Wilder and Fury that really fascinates me, because Fury will be an enormous favourite going into that third fight, and I'm seeing people just writing Wilder off to the point where they're even commenting that what's the point of having a third fight? It's a foregone conclusion, but surely Wilder's still dangerous.
He is, but just the manner in the way Fury won the second fight makes it almost like, do we need to see a third fight? You know, if it was remotely close, or even if the fact that Fury knocked him out was a huge surprise, but though he was telling us from day one that he was going to knock him out, to his credit, but the way he went about it, he bullied him. And now, even though Wilder's got that power where he can knock you out, so he's always going to be a danger. But he took that away from him from the first round. And all these excuses, there might be genuine here from Wilder about the costume being too heavy, the ring walk, and all whatever going on. Let's just say they weren't true. Mentally, he was broke. Fury broke him, and so you tend to think that it's very hard to see how he could win, except closing his eyes and swinging, which, by the way, he's done in the past, and it's worked for him. I think the Pulev fight is it's a tricky one. I go back and forth in my mind where thinking he's got Pulev at the right stage of Pulev's career. I've seen Pulev quite early in his career, and I think you have as well, Andy, and commented on him live, but he was very good. And he doesn't look the biggest, but he is big. He doesn't look the fastest, but he has good timing. Doesn't look the most powerful, but he hits hard with with both hands. My worry is not so much him, because Joshua at his best, I think we could walk through him. How much is the confidence for Joshua? I think it's a good fight if Pulev's on the wane, like on the other slope of the peak, as I think he is, as I think he obviously is. Then it's a good fight for Joshua, because I think another confidence building fight would do him no end of good before he goes in against Wilder or Fury, depending who wins. Because even though he boxed tremendously well in the second fight against Ruiz, and he stuck to instructions, there's so many things you would be happy about if you were his coach. To me, he still looked like a man who was a little bit, not afraid, cautious of getting caught. Which is understandable, of course, because they're big guys, but every time that Ruiz threw a punch, there was a little bit of panic in Joshua's work, just a little bit. The movement was great, and the jabbing and sticking to instructions, and he boxed beautiful, but when Ruiz committed, Joshua looked a little bit tentative, and like as if he had no confidence in his chin. And I don't think that Joshua can beat any of the top guys. That's my worry. I think Joshua at his best. I pick Fury every time over Joshua. Let's get out of the way now. But Joshua at his best, that when he's fearless and he believes in himself, he can beat anyone.
It was tense. It was a very tense night in Saudi Arabia at ringside, because everybody knew how much was riding on that, and it's not saying too much. I don't think it's over-egging the pudding to say that for British boxing it was a huge night, because obviously he's done so much to raise the profile, and Fury now is doing the same thing, and there were definitely a lot of nerves about that performance, and it was one of those occasions where he just needed to get the win. It didn't really matter how it came, but I agree. I think there were passages in that fight where you could see the alarm bells ringing when Ruiz got into distance and looked to let his hands go. The first really big fight we'll see in the UK post-COVID, it looks like, and I hope it'll happen on October the 24th, will be Daniel Dubois against Joe Joyce. Now, they were supposed to box on April the 11th, obviously, and we know why that didn't happen. But rather than just reset the date and throw them in straight away, they're both taking tune-ups. Joe Joyce had one last Saturday against Michael Wallace, who I thought was a perfect choice of opponent, really, because he's got a decent record. He's been in with the likes of Yoka and F.A. Jagba, but you just had to watch him for a round, really, to see what he was going to do, which was maintain a tight guard and stand in front of Joyce. Although he did have his moments in the first round against Joyce. Joyce got that job done. You would expect Dubois to do the same against Eric Pfeiffer in 4 weeks, although Pfeiffer is an Olympian, and I saw him at WSB, and is capable. But that Dubois-Joyce for me is as good a fight as has been made domestically. I know they're both above that level, but they're both British fighters, as I can remember for, I don't know how long.
They're not above domestic level. I mean, they might be world level, but our domestic level is so good that that's the level it is. This is a domestic.
No, that's
fight.
true. That's very true. Yeah, that's
crazy,
very true,
isn't it? But it's one of the only fights I can remember where you have an Olympic silver medalist who should have been maybe the gold medalist, world amateur, obviously bronze medalist, a European amateur champion. He boxed better opposition as a pro to his opponent, and he's still the underdog. It's crazy. It really is. And I'm going for Dubois, by the way, but I've never known any fight like it where the guy with all the credentials is the underdog.
So it looks like we're just about ready. I agree. I agree. I was talking about this on TalkSport last weekend, and I said, listen, with my factual hat on, I have to make Joyce the favourite because of what he's achieved. But at the same time, so many people are picking Dubois, and I completely understand why they are. But back to proceedings tonight anyway. Our MC just going through the introductions, and this will be Georgi Chelokhsaev against Ike Shakhnazaryan.
Представляю судейскую коллегию поединка. Introducing you judges. Николай Веселов, Андрей Черенев, Евгений Круглин. И Судан Гонка, рефери в ринге. The man in charge of the bout, Vladimir Myshev. И сейчас встречайте боксера синего угла из Армении. And now, please welcome, fighting out of the blue corner from Armenia, Timavore, Ike Shakhnazaryan.
Shakhnazaryan, as our announcer said there, he's originally from Armenia, but now boxing out of Spain. He's been around a bit. He's pulled on the gloves in Estonia, Uzbekistan, Latvia, USA and Spain as well. 23 wins and 3 defeats. He picked up that WBO European title against Felix Laura in April 2014. And then he took that invitation less than a year later to go to the States for the first time as an opponent on the Top Rank show against Abner Lopez and lost over 8 rounds, and then went down in 8 against Edward Troyanovsky, knocked out in Moscow not too long after that. Since then, he's strung together 8 wins. He's picked up a number of ranking titles with the WBC, the IBF and the WBA. only boxed her once last year. That was in April, so a long time ago now, 15 months ago, when he retired, as I mentioned, through injury after 8 rounds with the fight in the balance. He was on the receiving end. Almost Amador, his opponent, I thought was having quite clearly the better of it. A few distress signals were coming out from Shakhnazaryan. So as I said, tonight is a big night for him. He's in the away corner again. Really, he needs to have discovered his desire to continue.
And now, please welcome his opponent, hailing from the Republic of North Ossetia, Alania, Russia, Georgy Chelokhsaev.
Chelokhsaev, 26 years old, made his debut back in 2012 at just 18. He's the reigning Russian champion at super lightweight, and his most notable win came back towards the end of 2018 when he beat Gaibatullah Gazialiev, who we saw last week. It was a good fight, a tight decision. He got the nod over 10 rounds, and that was top of a Russian Copper Company bill in Ekaterinburg. So that was a big occasion on a good stage to win that vacant Eurasian Boxing Parliament title. And he is the man who is expected to get the win tonight.
Рост 167 сантиметров, вес 61 килограмм 800 граммов, профессиональный рекорд 23 победы, 11 из которых одержаны нокаутом при 3 поражениях. Рожденный в городе Арарат, Армения. Его не просто так прозвали Кадж. Fighting out of the blue corner, holding a record of 23 wins, including 11 knockouts and 3 losses. He stands 5 feet and 5.5 inches. He weighed in at 135 pounds and 6 ounces. By way of Ararat, Armenia, боксер из Республики Северная Осетия, Алания. Ему 26 лет, рост 173 сантиметра, вес 61 килограмм 900 граммов. Он одержал 18 побед и 12 раз отправлял соперников в нокаут, уступив лишь единожды из города Владикавказ. Fighting out of the red corner from North Ossetia, Alania. He stands 5 feet and 8 inches tall. He weighed in at 136.5 pounds, holding a professional record of 18 wins, with 12 coming by way of knockout, representing proud city of Vladikavkaz, Russia, Georgy Chelokhsaev.
So there's the tail of the tape. This being contested at lightweights. Hope Chelokhsaev dropping down to 135 pounds. He's coming just above that for this, but there's no title on the line, so no great drama about that. And as I said, he's the man in the home corner. He's the man who is really expected to get the win. But Ike Shakhnazaryan is detailed as mixing some good company. So this is scheduled for 10 rounds. Vladimir Myshev, the referee. We've seen a lot of lightweights over the course of the last couple of weeks. Globally, it is, of course, a red-hot division, a very interesting division. It'd be great to see that fight between Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez get in the works when things get back up and running, something like normally. So into the first round, Chelokhsaev in the black and red with the white glove, Shakhnazaryan in the grey and gold.
nice jab there. Shakhnazaryan.
Shakhnazaryan just going to the body with the right hand there as Chelokhsaev was just looking to take his feet back, looking to try and get on the job. Shakhnazaryan has made a good positive start here.
Again there. Chelokhsaev there. There's a beautiful jab. He steps behind it, doesn't he?
Chelokhsaev just backed up to the ropes here. Just trying to tuck up behind those white gloves. And let's go with the left hand. Shakhnazaryan with the jab, looking for the right hand off the back of it, and then the uppercut. And this could be an interesting contest, I think, because, as I said, Shakhnazaryan really, from the point of view of his career, needs to show people something tonight.
And he's trying to as well, to be fair. He's trying to push the pace there, but Chelokhsaev just catches him on the ropes, wasn't he? Quite neat. He sort of looks square there, but he just moved the left hook over the top. Shakhnazaryan was coming forward.
Shakhnazaryan just trying to edge forward a little bit with that front foot, flick the jab, didn't quite get through. Look for the left to the body there. Chelokhsaev just sinking into the ropes.
What he does there, Chelokhsaev, is he tucks in nice and tight, so even though Shakhnazaryan is throwing a shot and it's good work, he takes it and fires straight away. He takes it on the arms and whips that left hook over the top. Giving too much ground here.
Just invited Shakhnazaryan onto him there, really, Chelokhsaev, and he obliged with a left hand into the final 30 seconds of round one. Jab to the body there from Chelokhsaev.
There's there a nice little uppercut there with the left hand there, Chelokhsaev, but just on the balls of his feet, so they lacked a little bit of purchase. Come to have a go here, hasn't he, Shakhnazaryan, to his credit.
Bell goes at the end of round one. Nod of the head there from Shakhnazaryan. As I said, he's been out of the ring for a good while. Has had plenty of people. If you didn't get a fight in towards the back end of 2019, then you've been absent for a while.
Well, this is it, really, wasn't it? Shakhnazaryan there, committed to try and put Chelokhsaev back continuously. Good work there, three-punch combination. The first two missed, but he's committed to land him in the last shot. This is what happened quite often, as we see it here. Chelokhsaev was able to block and counter quite effectively off the ropes. And maybe just a little bit more weight and more class in some of the shots that he threw, but you can't be allowing Shakhnazaryan to be forcing the pace, to keep pushing him back, because it gives the impression that he's the boss.
I mentioned that fight against Gadzhiev in Ekaterinburg, and we saw Gadzhiev last week, and he looked good, he looked impressive, getting a stoppage win, mainly due to body shots. Ekaterinburg, you went there, didn't you, for the Yard Kovalev fight? Was that Ekaterinburg?
No, that was Chelyabinsk. I went to Ekaterinburg for the World Boxing Super Series.
Of course, of course. Just fighting with the front foot a little bit there, Chelokhsaev, trying to see if he could draw something from Shakhnazaryan. Those are the kinds of destinations that I'm always really, really keen to go to. The kinds of places that you just wouldn't go to otherwise, and that's no criticism of them as locations, but you just wouldn't, and that for me is one of the glorious things about covering boxing.
We had a great time. Chelyabinsk, we had just the greatest time. It was just so friendly, just unbelievably friendly.
Shakhnazaryan just backing up Chelokhsaev here and looking to try and tee off a touch.
Again, something I mentioned
from Chelokhsaev.
But Shakhnazaryan, he has the injection of pace in his work. You see, he lands with a jab, and then you just see how fast he follows up with the combination, and it always finishes with a whipping shot. And that left hook, when it's whipped, very hard to defend against. Good right hand there from Chelokhsaev.
Slight game of cat and mouse as Chelokhsaev was just moving back towards the ropes there. That was a decent combination from Shakhnazaryan. Didn't get through absolutely clean, but there was plenty of it. Chelokhsaev looks to fire back himself.
Better here from Chelokhsaev. Just trying to be a little more dominant there, take the centre of the ring. To see what Shakhnazaryan's like on the back foot. A little bit of pressure. Lovely combination, nice bit of speed there with that right hand over the top. Trying to pick his shots here. He's better when he lets him go in little flurries, isn't he? That was a good competitive round there, I thought. Really good competitive round. I think Shakhnazaryan started really fast. For me, he was dominant maybe for the first half of the round, and just slowly, Chelokhsaev there just working his way back in, and just letting his hands go a little bit more, and that's what you want to see from him. You just see there, he throws some quality work with for most of the first round and a half, he's just looking to pick the single shot. When he lets him go in little combinations, he's a much better fighter for it.
Seconds out. Второй раунд. Round 2.
Again, just happy to retreat towards the ropes there, Chelokhsaev. That's a little bit of a hallmark of his. He doesn't mind backing up just at that stage, though. He looked to try and turn his man and then maybe just held the back of the head there of Shakhnazaryan as he let go with his left hand. That was certainly what the referee was saying.
He's allowed to back him up, and then has to take a good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan. That's the problem he has. He's giving away ground. I don't think he needs to be honest. And I think it stems down to the lack of wanting to let your hands go.
A good jab there from Shakhnazaryan, and he just had him where he wanted him there for a second and didn't really capitalise. Good jab from Chelokhsaev as he comes back off the ropes, and this is warming up into a decent fight, because I think Chelokhsaev is maybe beginning to realise here that he needs to do a bit more.
But just what he did there then, Chelokhsaev, there, just jab to the head and then the body. I think just a little variety, little variation in some of his work will just offset Shakhnazaryan, who's looking to set him up every time Chelokhsaev throws a shot, he wants to fire back. Good shot.
Looked for that cuffing left hand. Half got through, then came back with a straighter punch, and again the jab there. Shakhnazaryan in close, looked for the body, but he's finding good distance there, Chelokhsaev. Did catch one back, a left hand from Shakhnazaryan, but a good exchange there.
I thought there was a good little right uppercut there from Shakhnazaryan, and I thought it just knocked Chelokhsaev just off balance a little bit. And a good
left hand there from Shakhnazaryan, and that's a good finish to the round for him. And interestingly, when they get into range and set their feet, it's Shakhnazaryan who generally has the final word. Chelokhsaev is landing, he is having some success, but the person who has the last word in the argument is generally the man punching now.
Well, I think in many ways he just set his stall up. He knows what he wants to do. He has a loose plan. He's just fully committed to it. So when Chelokhsaev lands with a good shot, Shakhnazaryan brushes it off and just carries on piling forward. And I don't think Chelokhsaev's used to that. That's the problem. He picks his shots well. When he lands with decent weight with his punches, but he's used to probably opponents backing up once they get caught, and that's not happening to him right now.
10 seconds out.
He's still boxing well in stages here, mind, to be fair, and he's throwing some lovely shots, but nothing's put a dent in Shakhnazaryan so far.
Round 4.
So it's round 4 of the schedule for 10 at lightweight. Georgi Chelokhsaev in the black and red, Ike Shakhnazaryan in the grey and gold. Chelokhsaev 18-1-1 heading into this one. His only defeat coming 5 years ago. He was 5 wins, no defeats, 1 draw at that point, and he went in with the 8-0 Vladimir Myshev, and he was boxing out of the away corner too, so that was quite a tough assignment, and he lost by decision over 8 rounds. So the kind of fight, by the sound of it, that he will have gained a lot from, despite an L appearing on his record, and he's won 13 in a row since.
Good here from Shakhnazaryan. He's just not quite out of range just enough so Chelokhsaev can hit him, but nothing with any purchase. Again, we're talking about that front foot, just keeping pressure with that front foot, just making Chelokhsaev there just not panic, but maybe punch when he doesn't need to. You want him to be busy, but you want him to be busy on his terms, pushing Shakhnazaryan back. Not being able to do that right now. That's better there for Shakhnazaryan. A little bit of dipping their legs a little bit, trying to get a different angle.
Decent jab there from Chelokhsaev, and then he looked to move his head, but he did it when he was out of range anyway. Good right to the body there from Chelokhsaev. That just echoed around the hall, and I just wondered for a split second whether Shakhnazaryan might have felt that one, but I don't think he did too much. But Chelokhsaev is looking a bit more accurate here and beginning to catch Shakhnazaryan a bit more as his opponent comes forward.
But he needs to throw from this position, where he is right now. Don't put your back in the rope. Sometimes it's hard to push off again and leave sort of purchase on the shots. Take the centre of the ring. And it also gives you scope to take a little half a step back and come back with some more work. That's good there from Shakhnazaryan there. Lovely right hand over the top, missing with the jab.
It was that right hand that really got through, and Chelokhsaev had taken his weight onto his back foot to try and ride it, but he didn't manage to do it because he really stepped into it, Shakhnazaryan. His thumped home, looking for a little left to the body there, and again he's just got Chelokhsaev back towards the ropes. He comes off it with 2 left hands, doubling up to the body, or attempting to.
Just walking down there, isn't he, again? Chelokhsaev still landing good enough shots, and probably the better quality work, but again another round where Shakhnazaryan was busier and he was the guy pushing forward.
So how do you have it after 4 rounds?
I got Chelokhsaev up, actually. I'm saying that, I know I've been talking all about Shakhnazaryan like he's winning the fight, but I still think maybe some of the more quality work has come from Chelokhsaev.
Технический партнер серии шоу Kold Wars Бука, бренд спортивной одежды и экипировки.
He needs to take the 7th ring because he can't. Although Shakhnazaryan constantly pushing back like this is a worry. If Shakhnazaryan can keep this pressure up, Chelokhsaev is starting to fight at his pace. He will tire first, and then that's going to be a worry if he hasn't already got a strong foothold or stranglehold of the fight.
Round 5.
So a touch of gloves at the start of round 5. Chelokhsaev with his back to us there in the black and red. Shakhnazaryan in the grey and gold. It's been a good competitive fight so far. Shakhnazaryan looking to try and lead off with the uppercut there. Didn't quite get it through. Just before that, Chelokhsaev had snuck a jab through the guard.
That's good work there from Chelokhsaev, but then just not quite admired his work, but just held his feet and have to take a couple back there from Shakhnazaryan.
Shakhnazaryan just looking to try and lean in. Chelokhsaev tucking up, trying to find a little bit of room to get that left hand free. Shakhnazaryan was trying the same trick, and they're swapping punches here. No one's really getting through clean. That was a decent looking left to the body, and then a right there from Chelokhsaev.
The only telling factor really is that Chelokhsaev, everything he throws, even though it's some quality work, doesn't halt the march forward here, does it, of Shakhnazaryan? That's the worry. He's not been able to stop him in his tracks or anything, or deter him from wanting to power forward.
Shakhnazaryan just trying to tee up that right hand, and again Chelokhsaev has been just pushed back towards the ropes. He seems happy to retreat, but as you've been saying, it's not really where he wants to be. Just looking for that left hand there, and the mouth just hanging open a little bit there of Chelokhsaev. It's been a reasonable pace to this.
And we spoke with this earlier on. He's having to punch out the necessity rather than when he wants to, when he's forced to, and that takes a lot out of you. Because you feel the pressure, the need to have to throw to stop a guy from walking through you. Good work there though from Chelokhsaev.
So heading up towards the midway stage, the schedule for 10. Shakhnazaryan just looking to dig his toes in and let that right hand go. It was maybe a little bit too close. Left to the body was a decent shot, then led off with a left hook upstairs, and again there just clips him with the left hand. That right hand had dropped a bit of Chelokhsaev. So the midway stage here at the Diamond, that's where the boxing's coming from in Minsk, Belarus. This is the second of 4 nights, 4 Kold Wars. We're bringing you the 3rd and 4th next Monday and Tuesday.
What it's turned into already is a real tough fight, and that's all down to Shakhnazaryan. He's just decided from the offset what he's going to do, and he's going to keep walking forward, blocking, taking, but always throwing back. Chelokhsaev, he's done some lovely shots. I think he's done the better quality of work overall. But he's the guy who's having to react, having to fight at the other man's pace, and will that tell now in the second half?
Round 6.
So into the 6th, and again Shakhnazaryan just straight on to Chelokhsaev. They touched gloves there, and then he didn't move, just crouched and shuffled forward. Shakhnazaryan in the grey and gold, Chelokhsaev in the black and red, and he's looking to try and pump out that jab. Just takes it up to the head and then down to the body.
Just landed with a lovely left hook there, didn't he, Shakhnazaryan? Not the first one tonight. It's probably been the best punch he's been able to land with, or the most frequent shot he's been able to land with.
Bit of trouble with the advertising Toblerone there. So the referee just breaks them quickly. Left hand there from Chelokhsaev, goes downstairs as well. Both of these two have landed some decent body shots, so nobody's really taken a backward step or let out a wince or grimace just yet. That could change as we head down deeper into the fight.
That was good there from Chelokhsaev there. Little double jab and right straight right hand right into the guard. See that right hand there though, he missed. Chelokhsaev there just looked like a little bit tired there with that right hand.
Well, in the previous round he did look like he might be beginning to feel it a bit. And Shakhnazaryan there just seemed to kind of gird his loins a touch, took a big gulp of breath. Left hand there as Chelokhsaev dipped quite low on the way in, and then he was slightly open and he leapt into the left hand again there, Shakhnazaryan. I wonder if he's just beginning to sense that his opponent might be just starting to will to touch.
He'll have to take some good shots as he comes forward, man. To be fair to Chelokhsaev, he's landing some good shots even when his back's on the ropes, but for the most part, Shakhnazaryan being able to smother the work and probably take away a bit of the sting of the shot. That's better.
Shakhnazaryan just covering up. He's not really thrown anything for 15-20 seconds, just trying to nick a bit of a rest there, I think, having put quite a lot into the earlier part of the round. They're feeling it, both of these two, and I think that could make it really interesting going into the last 4 sessions here. Shakhnazaryan looking to try and finish strong. Left to the body, goes upstairs, bell sounds, and Chelokhsaev aiming a couple there that were just a fraction late. Neither landed though, so it didn't really matter. But as you said, Barry, this has been a tough fight from the start because of the way that Shakhnazaryan has gone about it. And with 4 rounds to go, if you want to win this fight, you're going to have to really dog this out.
Oh, it's really in the balance, isn't it? I think, I saw it on the Shakhnazaryan. He hasn't tried to be cute with his work. It's been quite obvious what he's going to do, and he's thrown some good work. He's thrown some good punches. He tipped his legs sometimes in close to make it difficult for Chelokhsaev to land, but for the most part, he's just been bullish about his work. And also, I think Chelokhsaev has not been used to probably landing with such good punches and some clean work and not having an effect on his opponents. And it hasn't tonight. I think he's having to adjust to that. But what it is, he has to stay centre of the ring and not so much push Shakhnazaryan back, but not be pushed back himself. He needs to pivot on that front foot, but never get. Once his back gets to the ropes, he's got to turn.
It's interesting the way they touch gloves at the start of every round, and it's a good job that they're both sporting gentlemen, because they're so close when they touch gloves. You could easily just whip in a sly one there, and there would be nothing that the referee could do about it, because you don't have to touch gloves at the start of the round. No one makes you.
Who would possibly do something like that? The richest fighter in the world?
Well,
no.
There's nothing in the rule book against it, though. We discussed this. We discussed this last week, and I just think you're taking a risk when you do it in the side of rounds. But they both want to do it, so there's I don't think there's anything untoward going to happen here. But almost a minute into round 7, and again, it's fairly even stuff, really. Chelokhsaev just trying to stay tight. Both of them looking to just keep that head on the move if they can. Shakhnazaryan just climbs into a left hand, backs him up to the ropes. Good left hand got back through there from Chelokhsaev, but it's Shakhnazaryan who's really looking to try and get some damage done there.
It's every time Chelokhsaev's on the ropes, that's the only time he gets in trouble. When we're here now, this is where he needs to be. He throws his combinations quite well, and more importantly, he doesn't get caught with too much in the centre of the ring. When his back's against the ropes, that's where Shakhnazaryan there is full of confidence and drives forward, almost leaps into some of these shots. It's because he's used to it. These are habits where he sits on the ropes and he bosses people in sparring and in previous fights. And even though he still landed him, maybe again, the quality of work's probably better for him. But the impression of the guy coming forward and sometimes not working you, well, not at this precise moment, could swing the rounds in the other favour.
Well, judges often can tend to favour the fighter coming forward. It's something that I think sees fighters get a bit too much credit in my eyes. That's a good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan as he's backing Chelokhsaev up again here, just pushing it back to the ropes. Neat 1-2 on the inside and then a left to the body, and that was a good little passage there from Shakhnazaryan, who again just bites down, looks to throw a right hand. He's trying to put some pressure on him in the final 30 seconds of round 7.
Good shot there from Chelokhsaev. Just can't push him back, does he?
That was a great angle. That was a great angle to see it from, wasn't it? Because his hands were working. He was throwing shots, but you could see that there wasn't really any power in them. You were talking about this earlier in the fight, and how hard is it to generate power when you're backed up into the ropes like that? When you can feel those ropes on your back. Because he's not able to really stop him in his tracks, is he? As you've been saying, when he's on the ropes.
Well, what happens when you're on the ropes is you usually see here you're squared up, so you can't. It's hard to push up the back leg because you don't have any back legs because your feet are square. So that's the problem you have. It's a lot, and then it's just upper body weight, of course. So you lose the body mechanics and be able to push up your back leg, turn from your core or your hips, and generate some more width and power. So that's why you want to be in the centre of the ring, and that's why pushing forward is always advisable for power, because when you're pushing and you're a forward momentum moving forward. Your momentum moving forward, I should say.
Round 8.
So it's more difficult with your back against it. It's not impossible, of course, but makes it harder. When you're tired, of course, then you have to you're using more arm punches and your body's fighting against itself. I just think centre of the ring is where he should have been from the offset and moving round, pivoting, and he hasn't quite done that. It's a very close fight.
Well, he steps into the centre more there, Chelokhsaev, as you asked him to. Really good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan, launched into a left, telegraphed that one a bit, and Chelokhsaev was able to avoid it. But you know that sooner rather than later he will retreat.
Lovely work. He missed with the first two, but he just changed direction with his feet and whipped that uppercut through the guard. But again,
Shakhnazaryan's got him back in the corner here.
Yeah. Well, he got him in the corner. He's trying to walk him down, but it's not frantic pressure. Chelokhsaev puts himself there at times. That's my little bit of a grievance here. He puts himself in a situation where he shouldn't be in.
He does. He voluntarily goes back to the ropes. Good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan off the back of that body shot. When he was on the ropes that previous time, though, he did manage to turn Shakhnazaryan quite neatly and just slipped away. But here he is again, just looking to try and tuck up, and Shakhnazaryan just trying to home in on him there with that right hand. That's better from Chelokhsaev.
Yeah.
A couple of left hands.
Tapped the shoulder with the left hook, then whipped him underneath the ribs. Underneath the elbow, I should say. That's what I mean. I just think it's that bad habit. You can see that he does some good work on the ropes. He's had success in his career, you would imagine, doing that. Tonight, it's good work, but it hasn't been as effective because he hasn't been able to put a dent in this fella. That's all. Good fight, actually. Really good scrap. Oh, shot.
That was a good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan. He was just opening out Chelokhsaev to throw his own, and he got beaten to the punch. And as he was moving forward, he felt that one. It doubles the impact. And both of these two showing a few scars now, particularly Chelokhsaev and Shakhnazaryan, again just trying to maraud forward in as educated a fashion as he can. And again, he just pulls him back, pins him back towards the corner there. Decent left uppercut off the ropes there from Chelokhsaev.
That's what I mean. What's just happening? The actual just punches landed, or the perception of who's on top, who's the boss. The two didn't think, oh, it's a great uppercut there from Shakhnazaryan. And a hook.
And a good finish to the round there from the Armenian-born fighter. Good combination, 2-3 shots got through. And that could always count towards the end of a round as well. And both of these two, as I said, they're feeling the pace of this one with a couple of rounds to go.
Well, for me, though, there's one fighter feeling the pace more than the other. It's not dramatic, but that round was a hard round there for Chelokhsaev. I thought really hard round. But she boxed quite well in along the path. But those sort of shots there, they're not shots that are going to knock you out, but it's just sort of when the fight's being physically tough, they really deplete their energy. And he's quite clever, Shakhnazaryan, because he finishes the round as strong as he possibly can. And that's the freshest memory the judges have of what's going on obviously in that round.
Девятый раунд. Round 9.
That's a lovely uppercut there. And that's good. It's better from him there from the centre of him. Chelokhsaev. Where he needs to be right now.
So minutes into round 9. And Shakhnazaryan once more just inching forward, just waiting there, and he was beaten to the punch from Chelokhsaev, who looked to try and throw 1-2 again. Decent jab, but then just got caught with his feet a little bit still, and Shakhnazaryan fired back.
Just slowed down a bit, hasn't he, Shakhnazaryan?
Decent right hand there from Chelokhsaev.
And again, on the left side of the body. I was just about to say, he's not doing as much work as he had previously, and maybe looking for that perfect shot. But
I was just thinking exactly the same thing, because he'd just been a bit too deliberate in this round.
Yeah.
A little bit gun-shy almost, just rather than just letting those hands go, which is what he's done right from the start of the fight. All of a sudden, he was getting a bit fussy, a bit choosy into the final few seconds of round 9. 1 to go after this. Chelokhsaev just boxing nicely off the back foot there. Decent jab. The bell goes at the end of the 9th. So with a round to go, how's this looking on your scorecard now?
I have Shakhnazaryan up, and then it's a huge round here for me. It's a knockdown and possibly a stoppage. Chelokhsaev to pull off the win. I just think, even though some of the better quality overall has been from him. I just think that the overall pressure and the work rate of Shakhnazaryan has been what's taken my eye for the most part.
I think in the second half of the fight, it's been the volume from Shakhnazaryan, because when you're looking at scoring around, you're always trying to work out, aren't you, who has landed the greater overall tonnage of punches, I guess, the greater aggregate weight. And Chelokhsaev's work, as you say, a lot of the time has been a bit neater, a bit better maybe, but if you were to put those punches on the scales, I think Shakhnazaryan he's outdoing him slightly. And there's that left hand again, didn't really land clean, but it just made him move, just took those feet to the side from Chelokhsaev, who has got to really dig in here and come up with a big round. It's always interesting to know what corners have said to their fighters, sending them out for final rounds, and we've got no way of knowing here, of course, but surely they would have told him that he's got to win this round.
Yeah, well, whichever way you see it, even if you think you're ahead, you've got to know it's a tight fight, of course. Because at a big stage of the fight, you've been outworked. That landing on the left up there, Shakhnazaryan. Quite a little dangerous shot in the way he dips down really low and then just explodes into the left hook.
That was a decent combination from Shakhnazaryan. Chelokhsaev on the ropes, but this time just manages to manoeuvre his way to safety, sliding across to his left-hand side.
Left hand there from Shakhnazaryan. Oh, good left hook off the ropes there, and a little spin. He's been doing more of that, shouldn't he, throughout the fight? A little pivot, a little turn, get himself off the rope.
It's been a good watch this though, right from the very beginning. Good right hand there from Shakhnazaryan. Chelokhsaev was just taking his feet back, so maybe took the sting out of it a touch. But it's been a good pace, as you said. That pace has been set by Shakhnazaryan. Little 1-2 there from Chelokhsaev, as Shakhnazaryan just leant in with his head, just left it there, invited the punches, and they duly arrived.
This is good from Chelokhsaev there, just to try to push him back now and finish him stronger. Good right hand there for Chelokhsaev. Lovely shot. Loads of punches been thrown for both, isn't it?
Well, it's a good final round, a hot final round. Chelokhsaev just looking to try and tee off from the waist there, on the move to his left. Good jab, good stiff jab, and Shakhnazaryan just trying to hunt him down. 1-2 there from Shakhnazaryan, kind of reverse 1-2, right hand followed by the left, and throws it again there. Final few seconds, doubling up on the left hand there. Shakhnazaryan landed a couple of good ones, and he's the one celebrating at the end of the fight. A slightly rueful look on the face there of Chelokhsaev. Shakhnazaryan certainly feels that he's got the win here. And Chelokhsaev maybe a little bit resigned to coming second best. And I would be in agreement with you, Barry, that Shakhnazaryan has bossed it in the second half of the fight. There's not been a great deal in it at any stage, but as I said, I think about halfway through, he just looked like he's having the final word in most of the arguments.
He was just willing to take the shot to land too. I think that was what it boiled down to. It was that sort of simple. He couldn't be pushed back. I think Chelokhsaev just couldn't, like, all the good shots he landed with. And obviously he's used to, you could see he's just obviously used to fighting off the ropes and making people miss and hurting him. He just couldn't do that with Shakhnazaryan. He couldn't push him back, couldn't deter him from coming forward, and needed to take the centre of the ring a lot earlier. And even if you don't push the guy back, he's going to allow to bully you back, and he didn't do that. And that's why I thought the momentum for most of the fight was with Shakhnazaryan. But it was closer than what, if you just watch it and you go for the guy who's going forward all the time, then that's not always the case. So I do think he was outworked as well. good scrap though, either way.
Well, absolutely it was, absolutely. We'll wait to see what scores the three judges come up with, but it's a good performance either way from Shakhnazaryan, because as I said previously, 15 months ago against Oscar Amador, I thought that there were some alarming signs there from him. With 2 rounds to go, he pulled himself out really, as is his right, but it did just make you wonder how much stomach he had for it, quite honestly. It's a harsh thing to say about any fighter, but it was impossible not to wonder that when you watched that fight, because it was a tough one. It was a grueler, as was this one, but this is because he made it one. Let's see which way it's gone. Wow, the silence is absolutely deafening. I don't think I've heard that kind of silence in a boxing arena in my entire life. The MC is not quite back with us yet, so maybe these are close and he's just making absolutely sure that what he's about to say is correct. I don't blame him for that. Take all the time you need, because once you've said this, you can't get it back. There's nothing worse for an announcer than reading something out than having to issue a correction, but this could be indicative of it being close. Maybe they're just being checked over a final time, those score totals. Well, he's just got up there on the right hand side from the officials' table and he's wending his way around the back of the ring now, so this is a nervous wait for both of these, but it will be over soon.
Absolute torture. It's horrible.
So, ladies and gentlemen, господа, вы готовы услышать судейское решение? Тогда слушайте внимательно. Евгений Крулик, 94-97. Николай Веселов, 96-95. Andrey Sirotkin, 95-96. Judge 1, 94-97. Judge 2, 96-95. Judge 3, 95-96. Раздельным решением, by the split decision, the winner is red. Победитель в красном углу.
Well, you can see the look on Shakhnazaryan's face there. He wasn't happy with that at all, and Georgiy Chelokhsaev has got that by split decision. As we were saying, it was a good fight, and it was a close fight. It certainly wasn't a huge runaway victory there from Shakhnazaryan, but we felt that he'd done enough to get the win. He certainly felt that he had, but it's Chelokhsaev who gets it via a split. One judge, I think, there had it 97-94 in favour of Shakhnazaryan, which sounded like a good score to us, but we are unofficial, of course, and it's a 3-minute ringside who count. But I think Shakhnazaryan can and does feel slightly aggrieved there, Barry.
Yeah, of course, and also the way he fights, coming forward all the time, and the fighters like that, I never think they lose. So he's one of these, I think he'd feel like that, whatever happened. But just saying that, I thought he won the fight. I thought he won by a round or two, which makes it close. So I can't really argue, because again, it's not always coming forward that makes you the better fighter to win in a round. It's the quality of the shots. And even though he threw them more, some of the better quality will came from the other guy. But I still thought, saying all that, defending the decision, I still thought Shakhnazaryan did enough to win the fight.
Okay, well, it was a good watch, though, a good fight between those two. So a win there for Georgiy Chelokhsaev. We saw a win for Vladimir Myshev and also Andrey Sirotkin. So that's it for show 2 of Kold Wars. And if you look at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see that we've got 2 more coming up on Monday night and Tuesday night. So please do make sure you join us for those.